Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're talking about the one, the only Zebec Network. Listen, huge month for Zebec, right? The ISO 20022 compliance is going to make or break this crypto. Now, if we do not get this compliance, I still think there's probably going to be a nice pump this altcoin season, probably at least to a couple of cents, upwards of 10 cents. But with the ISO compliance being completed and us, being kind of integrated into the system, I mean, this would change everything for Zebec. This is the difference between potentially 10 cents to a high probability 50, 75 cents, even potentially $1. Okay. I'm not just saying that just to say that. I genuinely do believe that. Okay. Now, of course, you always have to do your own research, as I'm not a financial advisor, but we've been talking about Zebec on this channel consistently for months. We have shown the data, we have shown the evidence. Recently, there was a recap of quarter 3, and it was insane. Okay, it was insane. Now, I've mentioned this in my last video, and I'll mention it now. Good news doesn't mean automatic pump, but it does make a difference in the long term. Okay, because here's the deal, right? Investors, people that are rich are going to look at the crypto and they're going to be like, okay, well, how much is this really worth? And that will depend how high the price will go. So if there's good and consistent news, great news, excellent news, game-changing news, then yeah, like I said, this is the difference between a 10-cent Zebec and a $1 Zebec. Okay. And that is how it's determined. In the short term, nothing might really happen. Sometimes we might get a pump, sometimes we won't. Listen, this is the overall bigger picture of Zebec when it comes to the price action. We can see we have multiple tops over here, one top, two top, another top at 0.002. We have a nice bottom at 0.002625 area and a 2 over here. Now, I don't think we're necessarily going to hold this super to the T. I generally don't ever see cryptos kind of go diagonally like this and just kind of hold, right? Just because when cryptos do go like this for some time, it creates a lot of sell side manipulation and sell side liquidity. So that's like the only reason, right? That's the only reason. Not to mention that, usually you see a big manipulation before the move actually starts, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some manipulation from, getting out of the zone temporarily, then reclaiming the zone, and then finally going up. Okay. So it would look something probably like this, no, not like this, and then finally going up like this. So this is probably what I would overall generally expect from Zebec Network over the next few short months. But this is still a good trend line to be looking at and monitoring, right? This is a still, objectively speaking, especially if you have a longer term mindset of a couple months to upwards of 1 to 2 years, right? This is a good trend line to be consistently dollar cost averaging. Okay, at least in my personal opinion. That is what I personally see in the charts, and that's what I personally think. Now, of course, everyone has a different plan. Okay, everyone has a different plan, and you always have to make your own decision. I cannot make any decisions for you. You have to be the one. It's the same thing when things start to pump, right? When things start to pump, you have to make the decision of when you're going to sell. Okay. Yes, you can look at my charts. Yes, you could be in the private community where you get more information, more valuable information. But at the end of the day, it's up to you when you sell. When we go and look at the shorter term price action, overall, we can see this is a little bit of a green week, but it is very weak, right? It is very weak. We are rejecting off of this huge support and resistance, which we have been creating over the last few months. We can see we touched this point multiple times, right? Boom, we touched here, multiple here, and even here, right? So we touched multiple times. Now, someone said price action doesn't really matter, but the truth is it does. Or sorry, technical analysis doesn't matter, but it does, because we talked about how there's going to be a rejection off of this zone and there's going to be a sell-off, and that's exactly what happened, right? We rejected off of this huge zone and we sold off. Now, does that mean this is going to be it and we're selling off forever to zero? No, but it does mean that the next step was pretty much to see how we react off of this zone. And since we were creating consistent lower highs, very high, lower high, and lower high, we did say that we expect Zebec Network to be going down. Now, the good positive thing is the fact that Bitcoin has actually swept a very, very important area, right? A very, very important area of 98,000. It is actually a monthly sweep, right? So we can see we swept the monthly over there. Now, that doesn't mean in the bigger picture that overall we won't see something like this from Bitcoin where we go up maybe for the next couple of days or week or so, and then eventually, the end of November and December come back down to here, right? Because this is still very, very possible. That doesn't mean that this is not going to happen, but it does mean most likely in the short term, we are going to see at least a little bit of a pullback, at least a little bit. We can see the last 3 hours have been bullish. Now, overall, Bitcoin structure is still fairly bearish, and there are a few things I'm looking for things to happen for us to get confirmation of us going at least upwards of 110 to potentially 115,000, right? But overall, that is the picture right now, which is why we see some green in Zebec. In terms of Zebec's price action on the 4 hour, we are consistently creating higher and higher lows. We have a low here, we have a higher low, and a higher low. So it's looking good, right? Even though we did reject off of a huge zone, we are consistently rising the floor, right? The floor is consistently rising, which is what we love to see and what we want. When we go and look at something like the daily, right? Pretty decent rejection, pretty decent rejection. The weekly, right? The bigger picture is still fairly bearish. And of course, on the monthly, right? I don't overall expect this type of price action to be holding. It's not really the prettiest. Now, this could hold temporarily, but overall, I would be expecting for these zones to be getting taken out at least by the end of 2025 or early 2026. Like I said, as I do expect manipulation to be happening. Usually we see manipulation and then crypto goes to the upside. Kind of when we go back here, right? We had months and months of a floor. Boom. What happens? We manipulate, we go to the downside, we sweep all this. And then the next 2 months were amazing, right? The next month was a recovery. And then the month after that was the huge expansion. We go on a smaller time frame, right? We could see all of these weekly zones got taken out by this one weekly. Then we had another boom, nice pump. We held for 2 weeks. And then on the 4th week, we pumped. And the 5th week, we pumped even higher. So things were looking great. Things are going to be looking great. And yeah, usually, like I said, expect manipulation and then you go to the upside. I don't really, the thing is with Zebec, right? We are technically bullish on the year. So if ISO 20,022 does make a huge short-term difference, it can actually make Zebec go up. Okay, I say this because on the yearly we are technically blue, and this has the most say, right? This does have the most say out of any time frame. So we'll see how the news upholds. We'll see how the news impacts Zebec. Of course, I want things to be bullish, but like I said, usually historically, I expect some type of manipulation first, and then that's when we go to the downside after. Listen, we will talk about, the ranking. We will talk about a few other things for our beloved Zebec. So when we go and look at something like basics, we are rank 139 out of 9,222 active cryptos, 308 million market cap, 16 million volume in the last 24 hours. Overall, on the month, we are down a little bit more than 25%. In the last week, we're up roughly 9%. And in the last day, we're actually up we're down 3%, despite us going up in the last 3 hours. No Coinbase, no Binance yet. But the thing is, everything is looking good. We are consistently kind of rising with holders. Even today on a red day, because today was mainly red except the last 2-3 hours, we are still rising in holders. So people are still believing in the project and things are looking overall good. That is all to me, though. That is it for this video. I love you guys so much, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.